My life changed in a single terrible moment. It was a sunny Tuesday, and I was in my garden, watering my prize-winning petunias. I loved my little house and the freedom it gave me. I had lived there for 50 years, ever since my husband George and I first got married. But then, as I bent down to pick a weed, I felt a sharp pain in my knee. I lost my balance and went down hard. I wasn't badly hurt, just a scraped knee and a bruised ego. My kind neighbour Carol saw me and called an ambulance. I told her I was fine, but she insisted. She even called my daughter Lisa. Just a small trip to the hospital, I told myself. I didn't know then that this small trip was going to be the longest journey of my life. Friend, before I go on, let me ask you, would you do me a kindness? Tap subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. It helps me see just how far my story reaches. I knew my daughter Lisa was busy with her job and her own family, but I thought she would be there for me. I couldn't have been more wrong. I had no idea that my own family was about to betray me in the worst way. Lisa arrived at the hospital not long after I did. She was wearing a fancy business suit and talking on her phone. She looked so important and so distant. "Mum, what happened?" she said, but her voice didn't sound worried. It sounded annoyed. I told her I was fine, that it was just a little fall. But she didn't listen to me. She told the nurses I was confused and needed more help than I was saying. I kept saying, "I'm okay, I can go home." But she just patted my hand. "It's for the best, Mom," she said, and her eyes were cold. "You can't go back to that house alone." She acted like she was saving me, but I knew in my heart she was doing something else. My home was my freedom. It was my memories of my husband George. It was my life. Why was Lisa trying so hard to take that away from me? The doctor came in, a kind man with a gentle face. He looked at my knee and said I was very lucky. "You'll need a little physical therapy, but you'll be back on your feet in no time, Eleanor," he said. "You'll be able to go home soon." I smiled at him, so happy to hear those words. But as soon as he said that, Lisa looked at him with a strange look. "Doctor," she said, "could I speak to you in the hallway?" They left the room, and I could hear them whispering. I strained my ears, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. When they came back in, the doctor's smile was gone. He looked at me, then at Lisa, and his face was full of pity. "Your daughter thinks you need more care," he said, not looking at me. "She's arranging for you to go to a place where they can watch you." I felt a cold dread spread through me. What did Lisa say to him? And why was she trying so hard to keep me from going home? Instead of taking me home, Lisa drove me to a building I didn't know. It was called the Golden Years Retirement Home. My heart started to race. "What is this place?" I asked, looking at her with fear. She gave me a small, fake smile. "It's just for a few days, Mum," she said, her voice smooth. "You'll get some physical therapy and rest, and then you'll be back home before you know it." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust my daughter. But the feeling in my gut told me something was very wrong. The place smelled strange, like old food and cleaning stuff. It felt like a trap. I held on to her arm. "You promise?" I asked. You promise I can go home? She looked me in the eye and said, I promise. I felt a little better, but as soon as we got inside, she gave my suitcase to a nurse and left in a hurry, not even turning back to wave goodbye. The promise felt empty as soon as she was gone. I was alone, in a strange place, and I had no idea why. The nurse showed me to my room. It was small and cold, with a thin blanket and no pictures on the walls. It felt nothing like my home. I sat on the hard bed, and I just wanted to cry. I looked out the window at the parking lot, hoping to see Lisa's car, but it was gone. I felt so alone, so lost. I knew I had to call my son, David. He would know what to do. I went to the phone on the wall and picked it up, but a nurse came in right then. Oh no, Mrs. Eleanor, she said, her voice stern. You're not allowed to make private calls for a few days. It's in your care plan. My heart sank. I couldn't believe it. I was in a cage, and I didn't even know why. I tried to tell her I had to talk to my son, but she just shook her head and walked out. Why was I not allowed to call David? What did Lisa tell them about me? I knew something was very, very wrong. The days felt long and empty. I just sat in my room, staring out the window, waiting for my son, David, to call. I missed my home, my garden, and my friends. One day, there was a knock on my door. It was my best friend, Betty. Her face was so full of love and worry. What are you doing here, Eleanor? She said, her voice shocked. I thought you'd be home by now. I started to tell her what Lisa had said, about it only being for a few days, but before I could finish, a nurse came into the room. She stood right by the door and watched us. I just need to check your temperature, Mrs. Eleanor, the nurse said, her voice fake and sweet. It was so obvious she was listening to us. I couldn't talk freely anymore. I felt like I was in a prison. Betty looked from me to the nurse, and she got a look of understanding on her face. I'll come back soon, she said, squeezing my hand tight. She knew something was wrong, and so did I. Why was the nurse watching me so closely? What was she afraid I would say? I finally got a chance to call my daughter, Lisa. I begged her, my voice shaky and full of tears. Please, Lisa, let me come home, I pleaded. I don't belong here. I want my own bed. I want my own garden. But her voice on the other end of the line was cold, like ice. Mum, you are staying there. It's for your own good, she said. This nursing home is where you'll stay forever. My heart broke into a million pieces. The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't believe my own daughter would say something so cruel. I just stood there crying. As I hung up the phone, I heard two nurses whispering in the hall. Poor thing, one of them said. They all say that. She thinks she's going home, but her daughter signed the papers. She's not coming back. The words were like a dagger in my heart. So it was true. Lisa had lied to me from the start. She had signed papers to keep me here forever. I wasn't just here for a few days. I was trapped. I went back to my room sobbing. I felt so alone, so betrayed. I couldn't stop crying. I just wanted to go home. Then the door creaked open, and an old woman in a wheelchair rolled in. She had kind eyes and a gentle smile. I'm Martha, she said softly. I heard you crying. I've been here for years. You get used to it. I looked at her, and tears streamed down my face. My daughter said I'm here forever, I whispered. Martha nodded. They all say that. But they're not all lying. Most people who come here never leave, but some of us, we try to fight back. She saw the look on my face and said, I know you're new. Let me show you the ropes. You can't just sit here and give up. Martha was like a guardian angel sent to me in my darkest hour. She gave me a small spark of hope when I thought all was lost. Was she telling me the truth? Could I really fight back? Martha was my new friend, my new ally. She told me the nursing home had secrets. You can't trust everyone, she whispered to me one afternoon as we sat in the sunroom. But some of the staff, they have a heart, and there are ways to get information. She told me about the secret places the staff hid the phones. She told me which nurses to talk to and which to avoid. She was a master at the game. She told me I had to find out why Lisa had done this to me. Your daughter has a reason, she said. It's not just to be mean. My heart felt a little lighter. I wasn't alone anymore. I had a mission. I had to find out the truth about Lisa's motives. But what could she be hiding that was so bad she had to trap her own mother? Martha and I finally found a way to make a secret phone call. We snuck into a storage closet where an old phone was hidden under a pile of sheets. My hands were shaking as I dialed my son David's number. It felt like I hadn't talked to him in a lifetime. When he answered, my heart ached just to hear his voice. "Oh, David," I cried. "It's me. I'm in a nursing home." He sounded so surprised. "Mom? I thought you were in a short-term rehab place. Lisa told me you were getting a little rest." I felt my blood run cold. So Lisa had lied to him too. "It's not for a few days, honey. I think she wants me to stay here forever." I told him. I tried not to tell him everything, but I told him I needed to see him. "I'll be there as soon as I can, Mom," he promised. "I'll get to the bottom of this." My hopes were high. I knew David would save me. But would he really believe me over his own sister? The day David came to visit felt like Christmas. I had put on my best sweater and even put a little lipstick on. I was so happy to see his face. We talked for a while and he was so kind. He was my son, the boy I raised. But then he said he had to go talk to Lisa. He said he would meet with her and figure things out. My heart felt a little strange, but I trusted him. I waited in my room for what felt like forever. When David came back, his face was different. It was hard, and his eyes were full of a sadness I didn't recognize. "I talked to Lisa," he said. "She told me everything. She said you're not well. She said you've been confused and that you need constant care. She said you're not safe alone." He looked at me with so much pity. "She told me you're unfit to live on your own." My heart shattered all over again. Lisa had lied again, and my son believed her. She had stolen not just my freedom, but my son's trust. I looked at David, and I couldn't breathe. My own son thought I was crazy. He believed his sister's lies over the truth. "No, David," I begged him, reaching for his hand. "She's lying. I'm fine. I'm strong. I want to go home." But he pulled his hand away. "Mum, Lisa knows best. This is for the best," he said, his voice cold and final. "You have to stay here." I was devastated. The one person I thought would save me was gone. As he turned to leave, a small piece of paper fell out of his jacket pocket. He didn't notice. I quickly picked it up. It was a note from the doctor, but the words were typed, not handwritten. It said, "Patient shows no signs of mental decline. Patient's daughter, Lisa, requested a falsified mental health report." My heart hammered against my ribs. I had been right all along. They were all in on it. I had the proof, but what was I going to do with it? My son was gone, and I was still trapped. Was there any way out? My son David left, and I was all alone again. But this time I had something. I had that small piece of paper that fell from his pocket. My hands shook as I unfolded it. It was the doctor's note. The one that said I showed no signs of mental decline. The one that said Lisa had asked for a fake report. I read the words over and over, and my heart filled with a fire I hadn't felt in a long time. It was the proof I needed. They couldn't lie to me anymore. But I couldn't just show it to anyone. Who could I trust? My son believed his sister's lies, so how could I trust anyone else? I hid the note deep inside my pillowcase, a small, hopeful secret. It was my only weapon. My daughter, Lisa, was a liar. But why? What was she really trying to get from me? I knew she was behind all of this, but the reason was still a mystery. I told Martha about the note, and her eyes lit up. "We have them now," she said. We spent the next few days watching the nurses trying to find a weak spot. One afternoon we were in the common room, and Martha pointed to a small dark dot in the corner of the ceiling. It was a hidden camera. My blood ran cold. "They've been watching us the whole time," I whispered. Martha nodded. "They record everything too. It's for their safety." A strange idea popped into my head. If they record everything, then they'll have to record our new plan too. A sneaky smile spread across Martha's face. We had a new weapon, a new chance. We would use the very thing that was meant to keep us a prisoner to set us free. But how could we get the tape? How could we use a hidden camera to expose Lisa's lies and help me get my freedom back? Our new plan was a risky one, but we had no other choice. We had to use the hidden camera to our advantage. We started to act strangely in the common room. We would talk in hushed tones, making sure our words were just loud enough for the camera to pick up, but not loud enough for the nurses to hear. "I found the papers," I whispered to Martha one day. "The ones that prove everything." Martha would nod and say, "Be careful. They can't know you know." We talked about my son David and Lisa. We talked about my house and what Lisa would do to it. We dropped little hints, little pieces of the puzzle, hoping that whoever was watching would see the truth. We had to be clever. We couldn't be too obvious or they would stop us. We had to make them believe we were just a couple of old ladies talking nonsense. But inside, our hearts were pounding. We were building a trap and Lisa was about to walk right into it. We had the plan, and now it was time to set the trap. I got one of the nurses to let me use the phone. I called my daughter, Lisa. My voice was shaky, but I tried to sound calm. "Lisa, honey," I said. "I found some important papers in my suitcase. I think they might be about my will, and I want to talk to you about them. It's a surprise." Her voice changed right away. It got all happy and excited. "Papers? What kind of papers, Mum?" she asked. I could almost hear the dollar signs in her eyes. I told her to come to the nursing home to talk about them. She agreed right away. I knew she was so greedy that she wouldn't even think twice. She was rushing over, thinking she was going to get something from me. But the real surprise was for her. I had a hidden camera and a confession waiting for her. She had no idea what she was walking into. I just hoped my plan would work and that Martha was right. Lisa came to the nursing home looking like a cat that just found a mouse. She looked so happy. I took her to the common room, the one with the hidden camera. I told her we should sit there so we could be alone. She didn't even notice the little black dot on the ceiling. "So, Mum, what about these papers?" she asked, her voice full of fake kindness. I looked at her and asked her a question that made her face go pale. "Why did you put me in this place, Lisa?" She tried to lie, but I didn't let her. "Tell me the truth," I said. Tell me why you lied and signed those papers." She looked around, making sure we were alone, and then she confessed everything. "I need money, Mum," she said, her voice a whisper. "Your house. It's worth a lot. I need the money from selling it." The words were like a dagger in my heart. She had done all of this just for money. I felt sick. I looked at Lisa, and my heart was full of a terrible mix of anger and sadness. She just wanted my home for her money troubles. But I knew there was more. I knew the real secret. "I know about your gambling problem, Lisa," I said, and she froze. Her face went white as a sheet. "What are you talking about?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "A friend of mine who works at the bank told me," I said, my voice strong. "She told me you have a huge gambling debt. You've been taking money from your accounts and you can't pay it back." Her face was so full of shame. She didn't say a word. She just stared at me. My friend, the one who worked at the bank, had told me everything. I knew then that my daughter wasn't just selfish. She was in deep, deep trouble. She was willing to put her own mother in a home just to get out of debt. I had all the proof I needed, and now she knew it. What was she going to do now that I had her secret? Lisa was frozen in her chair. The look on her face was pure fear. I knew I had to act fast before she could think clearly. "I have proof, Lisa," I said, my voice steady. "I have it all on camera." Her eyes darted to the little camera on the ceiling, and she jumped up. She started trying to pull it down, her hands shaking with a wild kind of panic. "No, you can't," she screamed. She was no longer the calm, collected businesswoman. She was just a scared little girl. But I had a plan. I had a secret. "It's too late," I said. "I'm not going to let you do this." She was so busy trying to get the camera that she didn't even notice Martha walk out of the room. She was so close to getting caught, and she knew it. The only question was, could she stop the truth from coming out before it was too late? While Lisa was trying to tear down the camera, Martha had already snuck out of the room with a copy of the tape. Martha knew exactly what to do. Her daughter works for the local news station, Channel 7. She called her and told her everything. She went straight to the station and gave them the tape. The news people were shocked. A story about a rich woman trapping her own mother in a nursing home for money. It was a bombshell. The news station agreed to run the story on the evening news. They said they would expose the whole thing. The hidden camera footage, the false doctor's report, and Lisa's cold confession. It was all going to be on TV for everyone to see. I felt a sense of relief I hadn't felt in a long time. The truth was finally going to come out. But what would happen to Lisa now that her secrets were out for the whole world to see? That night, as the news report aired, I sat in my room with Martha. The TV was on, and there was my daughter, Lisa, on the screen, confessing all her cruel lies. My heart ached for her, but I knew this had to happen. They showed the secret camera footage and the doctor's note. The news anchor said the police were now investigating the nursing home. My phone started to ring, and the nurses were running around like crazy chickens with their heads cut off. My story was now a public spectacle. The whole city knew what Lisa had done. It was the most shocking and saddest thing I'd ever seen. My daughter's life was falling apart right in front of me. I had won, but the victory felt bittersweet. I had my freedom, but I had lost my daughter. What would Lisa do now that everyone knew the truth? The next day, my life became a courtroom drama. My son, David, had found a lawyer who was also his girlfriend, a kind young woman named Sarah. They were suing my daughter, Lisa, for elder abuse and fraud. The courtroom was a cold, quiet place, nothing like my warm home. Lisa was there with her own lawyer, looking angry and scared. She looked like a stranger to me. I sat there and watched the lawyers argue. My heart ached for my family. How did we get here? From a happy home to a cold courtroom? But I knew I had to fight. I had to fight for my freedom, my home, and my pride. My son David was on my side, and that was all that mattered. But would the judge believe our story? Would the world believe the truth about my daughter Lisa and the nursing home? During a break in the courtroom battle, my son David went up to Lisa. He was so angry, and his face was full of pain. "How could you do this?" he said, his voice low and shaky. "Our own mother. How could you lie to me and put her in a place like that?" Lisa looked at him, and for a second I thought she would be sorry. But she wasn't. She was still full of anger. "It's your fault, David," she said, her voice full of hate. "You should have helped me sooner. You should have seen what was happening." She was trying to blame him, to make him feel bad for not seeing her lies. But my son David was not having it. "You did this, Lisa," he said. "You did this to Mum, and you did this to yourself." He walked away, and I saw a tear fall down his face. The family was broken, and I didn't know if we could ever be whole again. Then it was my turn. I had to take the stand and tell my story. I was so scared, but I was also ready. My son, David's girlfriend, Sarah, stood beside me, and she gave me a small smile. I wasn't the timid old woman who had fallen in her garden. I was a woman fighting for her life. I looked at the judge and told her everything. I told her about my fall, about Lisa's cold words, and about how I felt trapped and alone. I told her about my friend Martha, who gave me hope. I told her about the hidden camera and how I found the proof. I spoke with a voice full of hope and strength. The courtroom was so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. When I was done, I looked at my daughter, Lisa, and her face was full of shame. But the battle wasn't over. The judge still had to make a decision. What would happen to me, my home, and my daughter? The judge looked at everyone in the courtroom. He looked at me, at my daughter Lisa, and at the lawyers. He cleared his throat and said, "I have made my decision." My heart stopped. I held my breath. "I rule in favour of the plaintiff, Eleanor." A wave of relief washed over me. I had won. I was getting my home back, and I would get a lot of money to make up for all the pain. But then my son's girlfriend and my lawyer Sarah stood up. She wasn't done yet. "Your Honour," she said, "there's a new piece of evidence." She held up a file. "We have proof that the nursing home was also a part of this scheme. They had a secret deal with Lisa to keep Eleanor there and take her money." The entire room gasped. Lisa's face went white. This was a new and terrible truth. The nursing home was just as guilty as Lisa. The victory wasn't just mine. It was for every old person who had been tricked. But would a win in court make me feel better? The very next day I was free. I could go home. Sarah, the kind lawyer, drove me. My home looked the same from the outside, but it felt different. It felt empty and cold. I walked through the rooms that held so many memories of my husband, George, and my children, Lisa and David. Now those memories were all mixed up with the pain of what had happened. I had fought so hard to get my home back, and I had won. But it didn't feel like a win. I was no longer a prisoner of the nursing home, but I felt like a prisoner in my own life. I sat in my favourite chair and looked out the window. My garden was overgrown. I felt so alone, so sad. I had won the battle, but I felt like I had lost the war. Would I ever feel like myself again? Would I ever feel at home in my own house? I was sitting in my empty house, just staring out the window when I heard a knock on the door. I didn't want to answer it, but I did. It was my son, David. He looked terrible. His eyes were red and his shoulders were slumped. "Mum," he said, and his voice was full of so much pain. "I am so sorry." He came inside and just sat on the floor, putting his head in his hands. "I was so wrong. I should have listened to you. I should have protected you. I'm so sorry, Mum. I'm so sorry." He was so full of regret, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the little boy I had raised, the boy who was so kind and good. I knew he was truly sorry. But could a mother truly forgive her son for a betrayal like that? What would it take to fix our broken family? I looked at my son David, and I saw all his pain. He was truly sorry. His heartbreak was real. I knew in my heart that I could not stay angry at him. He was my son. I stood up and pulled him into a hug. He just held on to me and sobbed. "I forgive you, honey," I said, my voice shaky. "You were tricked just like I was. You're my son, and I will always love you." I told him that our family was broken, but it wasn't the end. We could fix it. He helped me get my home back, and he was here now, trying to make things right. That was all that mattered. I had lost a lot, but I hadn't lost my son. A mother's love for her child is a powerful thing, and it can forgive even the deepest wounds. I knew that now, more than ever. But what would happen to Lisa? And could our family ever be whole again? When Lisa's lawyer called me, I told him I didn't want to send her to jail. He was surprised, and so was my lawyer, Sarah. But I knew what I had to do. I told the court that I would drop the charges against Lisa if she agreed to get help for her gambling problem. I didn't want to see her in jail. I wanted to see her get better. I told her that she could not come to my house or talk to me until she was healthy again. She agreed. The money from the lawsuit, the money I won, I gave it all to her. She looked so shocked. "Mum, why would you do that?" she asked. "I'm not doing this for you, Lisa," I said. "I'm doing this for the woman you're supposed to be." It was a final act of love and a final act of forgiveness. I had won my freedom, and now I was giving her a chance to win hers. So here I am, back in my home. My life is not the same as it was before the fall. It's different, but it's good. My relationship with my son David is stronger than ever. We talk all the time, and he comes over to help me in the garden. I am also a mentor for other elderly people who have been abused. I talk to them on the phone and tell them my story so they know they are not alone. And Jessica? She's getting help for her gambling problem. She sends me a card every week. It's not a perfect relationship, but it is built on a foundation of honesty and respect. We are a family again. And my home is not just a house. It's a place of hope and strength. But there's more to the story, friends. A lot more. What happened to Jessica's father, and what happened to the inheritance? Well, that's a tale for another day.